Welcome aboard the Wedding Empires podcast with yours truly, Jack Bowie, where we plunge into the depths of creativity, entrepreneurship, and the love-infused world of weddings. Each episode, we're going to unpack strategies, insights, and stories that empower you to craft the wedding business of your dreams. Welcome to the Wedding Empires podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Wedding Empires. I'm your host, Jack Bowie. It's my absolute pleasure today to welcome to the podcast Elizabeth Solaru. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And I hear it's looking to be a lovely day in London.
So we've got sun. I'm so happy.
Awesome. Now, the reason that we've invited you into the podcast is because you really know how to break into the luxury market. And that's something that a lot of us, might be just dipping our toes into becoming a wedding planner. But there's certainly a lot of wedding planners out there that would like to make that transition from the mainstream, I guess we'll call it, into that sort of luxury set. So talking about your background, you're a multi-award-winning luxury business consultant. You're a best-selling author, globally recognized cake artist, and as a CEO and founder of Diversity in Luxury Awards, you're also now a leading voice in luxury, and you help brands and professionals navigate the exclusive world of high net worth clientele. You've got a book called The Luxpreneur. I love that. How to start and build a successful luxury brand. And it's been hailed as the ultimate blueprint for those who are looking to succeed in the luxury space. So I shouldn't have just said wedding planners, anyone who's trying to transition, into that luxury space. So today we're going to go through, the first steps in positioning yourself, how to attract those kind of clients, the secrets to pitching, your pricing, your branding, and all of that. So let's dive in and learn from one of the experts on the matter. But I think, Elizabeth, let's start off with your personal journey. Can you share kind of, I heard you used to be a microbiologist. How did you get from that into doing what you do now? That's crazy.
Right. Okay. So yes, went to university, did my degree, did my master's in medical microbiology and parasitology. And I loved microbiology. My aim was actually to be a professor in microbiology. That was my goal. And I started working for the National Health Service in this country. I was working in a diagnostic lab. So I was literally diagnosing diseases and illnesses and that sort of thing. And I enjoyed it. But I remember after about 15 years working for the NHS, I kind of thought to myself, there's got to be more to life than being a lab rat. And I just made the decision. There were a number of things led up to it, but I made the decision to quit and I had no other job to go to. So I remember quitting on a Monday and I was walking on a Thursday. I was walking past the lab phone and it rang and I picked up and somebody said, would you like to work for us as a locum? So that was being a temp. So I said yes, obviously, because I had no other job to go to. And then I thought to myself, while I was doing that, because I had this vague idea of doing something in business, why don't I go off and do an MBA? Because in my mind, I thought, the more degrees you had. So I went off, did an MBA, and then I quickly realized, the MBA is not going to get me what I wanted to do, which I still didn't know what I wanted to do. But eventually I learned how to network. And then I found myself being tapped on the shoulder and somebody said to me, would you like to go and work for me as a headhunter? He was setting up a company. And I quickly had to dive into that world, had to learn about high-end candidates. I was recruiting finance directors and CEOs and chairmen. And I didn't know, I'd never run a lemonade stand. And these people were running multi-million pound businesses. But I quickly learned how to stand out. I learned how to network. Thankfully, blogs were being a thing in those days. It was early 2000s or something like that. Blogs were being a thing. So I learned how to find CEOs via blogs. And then I was networking like mad. And then 2008, we know what happened. The markets fell out. And I thought, oh my God, I need to do something. And then it occurred to me that this could be a time to do what I'd always wanted to do as a child, which was bake cakes and have a cake shop. But because I come from an immigrant background where education was everything, I dare not say that to my parents because to them, that is like family disgrace. So anyway, I then decided, okay, I'll set up my cake company, but I had a problem. How do I find clients? But then I remember thinking, okay, I will do what I've been trained to do as a headhunter, and that is cold calling. Because as a headhunter, I had to make 100 cold calls a week to CEO offices and find a way to get into the CEO diary. So that's what I started doing. I took the yellow pages and I started calling. And of course, all the wedding planners told me to go away. We don't know you. We already have cake makers. And eventually, after 120 calls, I finally got through to a particular office. I didn't know at the time she was the first proper wedding planner in the UK, and she happened to be the first cousin to the late Queen Elizabeth. And I got through to the office, and the young lady at the other end said, "Do you make cupcakes?" And remember, this was like 2000 and something. And I was like, "Of course we make cupcakes. I will be in your area the next 3 days. Can I bring some samples?" So I did that. So I took the samples and I was on my way back home on the bus when I got a call saying, "Lady Elizabeth would like to see you." And I'm like, "Oh my God, who's Lady Elizabeth?" And I went back and she met me. She said, "Beautiful cakes, love them, love the taste, love the appearance, love everything." And she gave me a job on the spot. So she gave me an order.
Oh my God.
And of course, I made a rookie mistake. I undercharged. I don't even think I charged for delivery. I was just so happy to get this order. And the rest, they say, is history. That order opened a number of doors because after the party, she did something which truly, I'll never forget. She wrote me a note, a handwritten note saying, because apparently they used three cake makers for that particular party. And she said, "Your cakes were the best tasting. Thank you so much." And she said, "You have my permission to use this letter in all your marketing." And that really helped my business. So yeah, that's my
It's unbelievable. That is not what I was expecting you to say. Oh, just one of my first clients was the Queen of England. Yeah, cool. Okay, no pressure, right? Just like diving into luxury at the highest possible end. So I guess I want to kind of know, how would you define luxury when it comes to the wedding industry specifically?
Now, that is a fantastic question. And I tell you why, because many people define luxury by budget. They define by budget. So if you're spending over 6 figures, 7 figures, that's a luxury wedding. That is right, but not completely right in a way. Just because you've spent a lot of money doesn't mean it's a luxury wedding. I define a luxury wedding by the client, and I've broken it down based on my clients that I've looked after over the years. There's been thousands of them. I sat down during the pandemic. I looked at all the emails and all my client list. And then I realized there are 8 different types of luxury client. And yes, you can define a wedding based on budget, but you need to define a luxury wedding based on psychology. So based on psychology, I will give you 2 examples. So, and I use this a bit in my when I do keynotes. You have somebody like the King of England and you have somebody like Ozzy Osbourne. According to demographics,
Are they the same? They're definitely the same.
you'll be surprised. They have so many similarities. So they were born in the same year. They're both white male. They both live in castles. They've both been married and divorced twice. And they are they are the same age. And by the way, they are good friends. So if they both give you the same budget, say £1 million as a wedding planner, would you do their weddings the same?
Well, no.
Exactly. Probably not. But the thing is, though, many people haven't been able to define why not. And that's the psychology. And I know you would take a brief and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But would you use the same vendors? Would you use the same products? So that to me is around the psychology. And this is the difference between, yes, you have a big budget, but not all clients are the same. So when people talk about defining your ideal client type, they miss out a lot when it comes to the psychology of a luxury client.
Wow. Okay. But then also, I guess you could have something very intimate that's luxury, and you know, I don't know why this has come to mind. Was it a successful marriage? But I think of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, they had their own island, didn't they? I don't know how many people went, but in my mind, it's just like small with their dogs, and but
Yeah.
that would be luxury. But again, very, very a different type of wedding, sure. So, what distinguishes a luxury client from a standard client? I suppose we've talked about that. I guess my next question's kind of like, how do you find them? Where are these people hanging out?
Listen, I love this question because, again, I address all this in my book. So depending on the type, you need to find where they hang out. And because that's the thing with a lot of vendors in the wedding industry, everyone automatically comes to planners. But there are only so many luxury weddings that a particular planner can do. So you can't then say, oh, yes, I will go to a planner. So yes, you will go to a planner, but depending on the different type of luxury client, you need to know where they hang out. So some of them could hang out online. I've often spoken about that. Some of them could hang out private members clubs. Some of them could hang out in certain business conferences. Some of them, it could be tennis club. It could be a country club. You need to go to where your particular type of client, where they go to. A lot of people talk about publications, for example. Maybe they read Vogue, maybe they read certain magazines, and that is true. But you need to ask yourself, are they going to be reading Vogue to find a vendor or a wedding planner? Or the type of person who would read Vogue? Because when you look at Vogue, unless it's an editorial, a lot of the supplier vendors are going to be on the back pages, very tiny, paid for, obviously. So would a typical luxury client look at that? So when I coach my clients, we do two things. We are building the word of mouth. At the same time, we are getting you out there to network in the right places. So even things like going to your local chamber of commerce, for example, and many people don't even know there's a chamber, every region, every country has a chamber of commerce. But what I did was that I didn't, in my local area, there was nothing for businesses when I was starting out. So I went to like the poshest area of London, and I talked my way into joining their chamber of commerce. So those are things you need to do. Even, for example, I remember getting a client via a security guy. So people are chatty. They like to chat. So he was a security guy, private members club. We got chatting. And by the time he saw my face 3-4 times, he was telling me about everybody. So that's what you need to do. You need to look for gatekeepers, because that's as important as going to the main person. Because when I was a headhunter, the people I needed to get past were gatekeepers. So, for example, a CEO would have 3 different PAs. One would be handling the diary, one handles the travel, and one handles the actual business. Of all 3 PAs, the most important PA is the diary person, because whoever's in charge of his diary is the one who has the keys to the kingdom. And that's the PA you need to network with. So a lot of my colleagues, when I was a headhunter, they would send presents to the CEO. I would send presents to the CEO, but I'll send an even better one to the diary PA. And that way,
Tip, I like this.
exactly. That way they remember you. They would remember you. I literally took the same principles. Everyone you try to network with, you need to know the right gatekeeper for them. So, for example, I used Ozzy Osbourne and King Charles. So King Charles, he literally has several layers of gatekeepers, because his luxury client type is what I call comfort first and safety first. We know that when he travels, he comes with his own pillows. He comes with his own toilet seats. He travels like that. We know that Ozzy Osbourne, he does outlandish things. He does outrageous things. For him, that would be his business manager. It could even be his stylist. So you need to know the right gatekeeper for the right client that you are targeting. And the reason it's nice to know the psychology of these clients is that in a family, in a high-end family, you can have 3 or 4 different psychological types. So, for example, I read about a couple of wedding planners. They're being sued by a client who wasn't happy with the way they planned or whatever the wedding. And when I read the court documents, it was so clear to me that the bride was a particular luxury client type. She was an aesthete. So she's all about order and organization. Her mother was a simply the best. So she just wanted to spend the most money to get the best thing. And their dad, the one who actually makes the money, he was a comfort first. So the planners were getting conflicted things from all 3 of them. But if you know the exact type of people that they are, you're able to adjust accordingly. And also, from the court documents, the planner made the mistake of thinking that they were friends. Even if your clients are friendly and they're the friendliest in the world, until you deliver that job, you are not friends. But you deliver the job, then you become friends. Yes, during the process, you can be friendly, you can be the confidant, you can be the shoulder to cry on. You will see many things that you're not supposed to see. You keep quiet, you're discreet, but you are not friends because you're not equals. So those are some of the things that, I hope that answers your question. I'm trying to remember what the question.
That's really amazing. I've learnt so much from that, including the fact that King Charles changes his toilets.
If you're in the business of making dreams come true, listen up, because the Wedding Academy is your ticket to success. Running a wedding business isn't always a walk down the aisle. It takes skill, savvy, and a whole lot of know-how. That's where the Wedding Academy swoops in to save the day. Imagine easy-to-follow certificate courses taught by industry pros covering everything from wedding styling to floral design to even marketing and business for any kind of wedding business. All Wedding Academy courses are 100% online, self-paced, and come with ongoing training and support to keep you up to date. And here's the cherry on top. I've wrangled up an exclusive deal. Just punch in the code PODCAST when you enroll and bam, you'll score a sweet 5% off any course. Ready to take your wedding business to the next level? Then head on over to the Wedding Academy today at weddingacademyglobal.com. Don't forget to plug in that code PODCAST to check out with your special discount.
Toilet seat. He brings his own toilet seat and his own pillow. Yeah.
No, I did absorb a lot more than that, but that did jump out at me. I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah, I think that's it's so true that I know my background's a wedding planner, and in I wasn't in the luxury market. I was in the sort of mainstream market, I suppose. But I was very much catering to the bride. And we even said we are your wedding bestie, so mind you, but that was our brand and that was our thing, in the relationships that I had with these brides was always we were having wine and cheese and they were saying yes and no to things and we felt like friends. But I love now that I think about, there's one that really stands out that was a really great client, and I think, you know what, things were important to her mother that weren't important to Alex, and things were important to her husband that weren't important. And now that you say that, yes, I can see that, and probably in hindsight, there's more to the questionnaire along those lines as well that should be there, not just about the couple, but all of those other dynamics. So that's really interesting. So just on that, if someone is in that sort of mainstream wedding space, what would be the first kind of steps, apart from we've talked about sort of finding those clients, but like what else in terms of positioning their business?
Oh, that's a great one. And I tell you, this might surprise you in terms of the answer. Positioning your business starts from you. So you need to have that luxury mindset. I remember I spent the first 5 years of my business trying to fit my business in the middle range because I didn't accept that, my products were actually for the maybe 1% or whatever. So I was trying to fit in the middle because the middle gives you the most clients, quite frankly. When you look at volume and you're going up the pyramid, obviously the higher you go, the less the number of clients that you're going to get. So it starts with your mindset. And in my book, I actually talk about the 9 different types of luxury business founders. So to give an example, I came out as an artisan and a visionary. And on paper, that looks good. So as a visionary, I'm thinking of the future. I'm future casting. Everything's amazing. I can predict, and I could. And that really plays to my strength. And as a craftsman, artisan, it means I care so much about my products. I'm detailed. I beat myself up if I don't hit those standards, etc. But here's the downside. As a visionary, I need to be grounded in the present. I need to know that, yes, it's great to have all these visions. However, Elizabeth, for now, for this present moment in time, there are certain things about your business that you need to be careful about. Also, as an artisan, that is the worst combination with a visionary because I'm spending so much money creating this incredible product. Is it even for the high-end clients? Is the pricing in terms of value, is it reasonable? I need to be more conscious of costs. I need to be more conscious of resources and time as an artisan. And many artisans are not, because all we want to do is create. So then I said to myself, okay, the type of people I need to work with in my business, I need to work with a great business manager. I need to work with someone who is very operationally minded, someone who can literally standardize certain processes. And also, I need to work with a great marketing person that can literally sell my vision and sell the artisanal products that I produce. Because I'm not the only talented cake maker out there. There are many of us. So those are things I had to learn about myself. I also needed to learn about the different levels and the different types of luxury because luxury has different levels. Again, I split it all down in the book. So am I going to look for 100 clients a year that pay X, or am I going to focus on maybe 1 or 2 a year that pay Y? And both have their pros and cons because the ones, maybe the 1 or 2 a year, yes, they pay a lot, but when you then break it down in terms of expenses and expenditure and demands, etc., is it really worth it? Or is it safer to have to stick to my 100 and know that, okay, with this 100, I can deliver. But then with 100, you need a team that can replicate you. And you also need to be present as well, because some clients are not just buying your products, they're buying you, your presence on the day. The fact that they've flown you out and they get to take a photo with you is a big deal to some clients. So those are some of the things you need to think about when you're starting out.
Interesting. And what are some of the key platforms that people should be targeting and prioritizing if they're moving into that market?
Okay. So online, so again, I break it down in the book. Online, for example, and I'll give you a practical example. Instagram is a great one. However, many people use Instagram wrong because they're looking for the type of luxury client that is happy being out there. And they tend to be aspirationals or simply the best who want to show off their money. And they will get inundated very soon. What you need to be looking for are those accounts that are private. And those accounts will be under a pseudonym or a nickname. It will not be under their real names because some of them do not want that attention. So how do you find them? People ask me. I say, a lot of them like travel and fashion and blah, 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 blah. Go under those big brand accounts and look in the comment sections, look for the people that the brand is replying to. So if a brand is taking the time out to reply to a particular person, that's the person you follow. And you may send a request, just wait. But when you send your request, look at other people that Instagram is suggesting to you. There you will find similar profiles and similar people. So that is a massive tip for that. Another tip is Google, for example. I don't use Google the usual way. I do my normal Google search, but then I use Google Images. I want to see who's been photographed next to who. So, for example, Getty Images. Getty Images will not photograph anyone who is not of consequence. So look at the person, look at who they're photographed next to. That will give you a massive clue. Of course, you've got the usual, the Sunday Times, top whatever 100 list, the Forbes list, blah, blah, blah. However, for a certain client, they pay not to be on Forbes list. Because when you look at Forbes list, there are certain regions in the world where a lot of those names are not on that list. And that's deliberate because they don't want the attention. So, and then there's, other things as well. You can look at family offices, but I can spend all day talking about family offices. So those, at least I've given 3 solid tips that you can literally do from your living room. If you're like me, I don't like leaving my house very often. So I tend to do a lot of my networking online, believe it or not. But these are things I have things in my book that you will not find on Google because these are tips I've had to learn myself, either as a headhunter or as someone who runs a business. So you can find these people online, but you just have to have the strategic and tactical awareness.
I love that. I happen to be on Getty. I think there's about 6 images of me. They might be about 20 years old. Back when I was who's who. That's another story. But now you've made my day mentioning that. So, Elizabeth, I guess just to sort of finish off, what would be your advice? So, sorry, I keep going back to wedding planners because that's obviously that's where I for any wedding professional that they've got their heart set on this. You've given some great advice about where the clients are, what they should be doing, what networking and all of that. But literally, what's the first step? Starting tomorrow, what the mindset needs to change. What else?
Your imagery. So don't show, because a lot of people want to show range. So they show 20 products when 3 incredible products will do the job. So I can say this as a cake maker. So, I have my gallery, etc. But when I did my website, my first website, I'm going back maybe 20 something years. I remember I just had one image, beautiful image at a time. So I don't do the gallery of like a gazillion images or whatever. And also you need to curate and organize and arrange. You can do it by color. You can do it by size. Whatever it is you're doing, you need to organize so that way, when people go on your website, they're going, you're directing them, because a lot of people that go on the website, it's like entering into a maze or a foreign country for the most part. I think about maybe 60 to 70% of people getting married who might need a planner, they might be getting married for the first time. So they need, from the very time they land on your website or your Instagram page or however they find you, you need to be like a Sherpa, a guide. So if they land on the first image and they don't like the image, that's actually not a bad thing. So you need to curate in such a way that makes sense. I was looking at a photographer's website, and then in my head I was thinking, I could tell they've only done 2 weddings, or they've only done whatever. I wasn't getting that feeling of confidence. And that's because they literally just dumped all the images. There was no rhyme or reason. So if they'd shown me like the bride or a couple in their finery, if they'd created a story of the wedding day from maybe prep to the vows, I would have been interested in that. Instead, I'm getting, the images are great, but I'm just getting randoms, and I'm getting that wedding next to that wedding next to that wedding. It didn't make sense. But if they'd said Peter and Paul their love story. Pamela and blah, their love story. That would have worked for me because I'm like, okay, who are Peter and Paul? And where did they get married? And how did they get married? That is a kind of curiosity you need to satisfy in people. Because the longer they spend on your website, the better it is anyway that Google goes, okay, there's no bounce rates, number one. So Google goes, that's a great website. And also Google is doing something now where if you click on a certain image on Google Images, it brings up other similar images. So you need to leverage that. So you need to say to yourself, okay, the images that I want to create. So if there are any high-end, I don't know, wedding planners or whatever, and they've got these incredible, great images, you may need to create something similar. Even if you've never offered that before, you may need to create something similar. So at the very least, when people are doing Pinterest or whatever they're doing or they're searching, your images are coming up as well. And
I think that's great advice. Yeah. Even if it's a styled shoot, just to try. Yeah. Yeah.
if you're going to do a style shoot, I am begging you, it's better to do a couple a year than you're doing 10, you're all over the place, but none of your images make sense. So the first thing you need to ask is, who's a photographer and where's this shoot going to appear? And more importantly, is the blog either going to link back to your website? Because they could list your website, but they could turn off there's a technical term for it. Can't remember what it's called. So if they turn that off, because again, that's money, you're not getting anything, directly. And Google's like, okay. Yeah. So there's, it's a bit deeper. And the last thing I would say really quickly is around storytelling. Because your most visited page on your website is the about. People want to know, who is this person? Where have they come from? Do we believe them? Are they authentic? Are they credible? Can we trust them? Is this person a high trust person? So your storytelling, and then I cover all this imagery, storytelling, website. I cover everything in my book. With the storytelling, it starts with the plot, the characters, the ambience. I break everything down in my book because a lot of people say something like, we are the leading blah, 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 blah. And so what? Who cares? But it's a different story when you say something like, I've always been, I like planning. This is what I've done so far. This is where I'm headed. And this is, that kind of, again, it's organization because people need to read a story that they resonate with and it makes sense. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I've learnt so much. Now I feel like going back to doing wedding planning and just doing it differently. Now, we keep hearing about this book. It sounds like something that absolute must read if you're thinking about going into the luxury market. So Elizabeth's website is elizabethsolaru.com. I will put the links in the show notes. You can also find her on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time. We'd love to have you back. I'm sure there's plenty more pearls of wisdom in there.
Thank you so much for having me. And I didn't mention the name of my book is The Luxpreneur.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And where else can people get that? Is it just your website or Amazon, all that sort of?
Amazon.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. Amazon everywhere. Amazon.
Excellent.
Yeah, Amazon.
Go buy it, guys. Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, Jack.
This episode of Wedding Empires is brought to you by the Wedding Academy, where you can start and grow your wedding business. We offer certificate courses, group coaching programs, and a whole heap of templates and worksheets and things to help you get started and grow your wedding business. For more information, visit weddingacademyglobal.com. And don't forget to use your 5% discount code podcast when checking out.